Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Our webinar today is about mobility. Our topic is 5 things you must do to make your notes applications mobile ready. Presented today by Maarga Systems, and Guy is our presentation. So Gayatri, we appreciate your time and efforts in preparing this presentation. And just a reminder to everyone that your attendance today does enter you into the drawing for the trip to MWLUG in Atlanta in August, or if you're the lucky winner, you may want to choose to win the new Mac Pack instead, which is the Apple Watch, a MacBook Air, and an Apple TV. So we know these are both exciting prizes, but it'll be your choice if you are the winner. So this is part of a Notes Code promotion, and the sponsors doing the webinars during the months of May, June, and July. Okay, just a reminder that we will also be taking some questions and giving some answers at the end. If you have some questions as Guy is presenting her presentation, go ahead and expand your GoToWebinar control panel. There's a section for questions. You can go ahead and type in your questions so that they'll be queued up for me to read to Gayatri at the end of her presentation. So it is a good idea to ask questions. It may not be, if they're real technical questions, you'll probably have one of our technicians get back to you on that answer, but talking about business process and higher levels type of questions should be able to give you some great insight. And we'll go from there. So I'm going to switch the screen over to you, Gayatri.
Thanks, Scott.
All right,
Okay.
I'll let you know when we see your screen, and then also just a reminder to our participants that we will have a couple of poll questions, so your feedback during the poll questions would be appreciated. All right, Gayatri, I don't see your screen yet.
Let me know once you can see.
There we go.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay, super. Okay, let's get started. Thank you so much, Scott, and thank you everyone for joining us today. As you know, mobility is hot now, and everywhere, like, including of my daughter, they have like 3 to 4 mobile devices at any point in time. Between the tablets, the multiple types of tablets, the multiple mobile phones, and increasingly, enterprise users are saying that they want their enterprise applications on those mobile devices. So that's the context for this webinar today. We know that our managers and directors in enterprises are saying, how can you bring enterprise notes applications into mobile? And there are a few things that we have discovered that you must do when you want to start off on this journey. So that's what is the context. I am Gayatri, easily called Guy. I've been working in IT for more than 19 years, and nearly 15 years of that with IBM Notes and other platforms. And one of the critical things that I do in Maarga is play the role of an evangelist who looks at IBM Notes applications and seeing how they can be made relevant to the current and the future. So that's one of the roles that I play here. So let's get started among you with a quick poll question. Where are you in mobile enabling your notes applications? When I say planning, it's, yeah, we have to do it and we're just getting started. When your strategy is, yeah, we know what we're going to do, and POC pilot, and of course currently ongoing are self-explanatory. Scott, could you run the poll question, please?
Okay, the first poll question is launching. So if everyone would give us a quick answer here. So select one of these. So where are you in mobile enablement of your notes applications? And then I will display the results here in just a moment. So we're almost a half of us voting. About 5 more seconds. Just one mouse click is all we're asking for. All right, last call for a vote. And now I'm going to share the results. Very interesting on the results here. All right, here comes the results. All right, so Guy, I don't think you can see these, but I'll tell you that planning is 70%, strategy defined is 0%, a proof of concept or pilot is 0%, and ongoing is 30%.
Wow. Impressive.
Yeah, I'm very, very shocked at the results there.
Yeah, and thanks for the answers. So I think if you are at planning stage, this would be fairly relevant to most of you. And let's get going with that. So one of the critical things that makes for mobility very interesting and also a little bit challenging is the fact that a lot of people in the enterprise today carry more than one mobile device, and the fact that they have multiple modes on it. You have them disconnected, you have them connected, and you have different form factors. And the fact is, like, they expect, and everyone's become used to the Google and the Facebook and the Instagrams of the world, so they expect persona-based content. So they need you to know who they are, be able to be context sensitive, and provide solutions that are relevant to them in that context. And that's become a worldview. It's no longer like a luxury, it's a necessity for most enterprises. So if that is the case, then what are the elements of a mobile strategy? How do we go about doing this? That's the very first step. Understand that your business goals come first. I mean, I would just share a small story. We had an organization, a pure BPO kind of an enterprise, local here, and all they were doing was get some data, process it, and send it back. Now, the core application that was being used for this did not have to be mobile enabled because it had nothing to do with people going out, accessing data, or doing anything. Whereas their customer service was to be mobile enabled. So that's what is your business goals. You need to understand where in your strategy does mobility fit in and how it is going to make a difference to your users, whether it is external users or internal users. The second very, very important step is to understand your user needs. Quite often, I mean, especially if you're part of the IT team, it's very easy to say, oh, I would like to do a mobile application and start looking at all the functionality and see, okay, how do I take it and show it across to my user? But that's not needed. We'll come to that a little bit more in detail when we get in further into the presentation. Third is, what devices are you going to support? Do you need it to be native? Because, and we will explain what these mean, because if you're restricting yourself to a smaller subset of devices, and it does happen, especially in certain countries where you have very strict laws in terms of bring your own device, there may be a very clear corporate announcements and directive to say we only support iOS X or we only support Samsung, something like that. When you have a clear directive, then it's a little easier because then you know what is the narrower scope. In the case of a web kind of an application, something that is going from your business to the end customer, then you definitely have to look at the fact that it's going to be accessed by a multitude of devices. And fourthly, as I said a little before, the content is very, very important. It becomes like, what is the content, how is it relevant to your user, and how is it context sensitive. All these aspects need to come together for you to define your mobile strategy. There are many other supporting factors as well. One of the key areas is security. And of course, as Domino users, we've been kind of a little lucky because Domino does not allow entrance, and it kind of keeps away most people, and then you have to explicitly bring people in. So it is a little easier, but then you do have to look at security as a very important part, a supporting part of your mobile strategy as well. Once you know what you're going to do from your mobile strategy perspective, and this could be enterprise-wide or it could be specific to your Lotus applications. We have had customers who have chosen their primary area was SAP, and they had a mobile strategy for SAP, and the same had to be adapted for Lotus as well. In that particular case, it was a lot of web services, a unified look and feel across Domino applications in SAP, multiple. So it depends on your enterprise. You need to look at, am I going to have a same strategy across all enterprise applications? Am I going to choose something specific to nodes depending upon the size of your nodes infrastructure? You would have to take that call. And it's better to take that call early because the redevelopment effort and change in this is pretty costly. Once you know what you're going to do, make sure that you know your applications very, very well. I'm sure probably you must have heard this in several places. We have had enterprises that have had 25,000 plus applications, but really about 2,000 of them which are currently used and relevant, and about 200 of them which are critical. Now that's the kind of numbers that would be staring at you. Now if you had to enable like 25,000 applications, it's daunting. 200 of them with a strategy is still manageable. Now that's what you need to do first. You need to know your applications. Of that, the critical areas that you need to know is the usage. You could get that from 3 parts: catalog.nsf, not always completely relevant, but it will give you some instant quick checks. Your log is going to give you further information, of course, because and most organizations don't keep their log more than 7 days, so it is something that you would have to collect over a period of time to get really decent information. The user activity, if it's been enabled in your database, can give you some insights as well. Of course, looking at multiple areas of these, you will be able to identify, at least eliminate some of your non-used, very long forgotten applications so that you don't have to really touch them, and then narrow down the scope of what you really need to do. After you've done that, pick some of your medium to most used applications, because again, as you're building up your planning and strategic areas, you need to look at a POC or a pilot pretty quickly. And for that, something which is medium complexity in terms of functionality and also medium usage is a very good candidate, especially if it involves a lot more reading of data and quick wins, as opposed to something that has a lot of critical interconnections between multiple systems. Understand the user persona behind the applications. Talk to your business users. And one easy way to do that is to have a survey. Now for the application analysis, there are tools that you can use. You can look at these areas, as I said, the catalog, the log, the database activity. You can use tools in the market as well to generate this data. But nothing beats being able to talk to the user and understand what are the different user personas. Now the critical thing that one of our customers faced is the person who asked for the application had to be developed, that needed to be developed, had left the organization. The person who had developed the application had moved away, taken up a different role, and it was just being used by a small group, but the data that they were generating was extremely critical, being used by almost the entire organization. They would come and ask for details, and this small group of about 10 people was using this application day in and day out. And only by talking both to the people who were using it and people who were consuming the data, we could arrive at the fact that how critical this application was and what they were using this data for. And then we could successfully identify use cases that was really needed on the mobile front. Look at not just the current use cases, but also to the future use cases. Because even if you are looking at only the data that's there in the Domino application, it would still be relevant to understand where this data is going to go, who is using it, and the downstream of it, because it makes a ton of sense to look at how this application is used and how it's likely to be used and plan for it right now. So you've done all this, and this is probably like, some of you already have a list. You have already prepared your application portfolio, and then you know what is going to be part of your initial pilot stage or the key applications that you want to mobile enable. The most important thing next is to get into the innards of the application. A lot of times these applications could be working either on a Notes client or a web, and it's working beautifully. There's not been the normal support issues, but by and large, they're working well. They've been established, and over a period of time, people have gotten also used to some of the quirks of it. And in terms of the servers, they're all supporting the application, and all of it is well. And you think, yeah, this is fine. I have a good web application. Now let me move it to the mobile side. Unless you dig into the innards of the application, you won't know what you find. And there are sometimes we found some really spaghetti coding and stuff that is like evolved over a period of say 15 years and 17 years and things like that, which means some of the functionality that's working today, if you just bring it over as is to your mobile phone, it's going to break down completely because your form factor is different, the way you access it is different, and the way you're going to be using the data as well as bringing your application to mobile is different. That your existing code may not scale, and you don't want it to happen that you've developed a beautiful UI and a beautiful application, and then when the user is using it, it's starting to hang. So the first step in that process is to analyze the architecture. Now, not always would you be able to do that because people who have developed it are no longer there, or even if you are the person who's developed it, you've been part of the team that's brought up these applications, you've kind of forgotten why some of these decisions were taken. They're so long back. And we have seen applications that survive quite a lot and go through enormous amounts of changes, but not really a complete redesign. The idea here is to look at, very critically, look at what are the architecture choices made. In the case of web applications, Domino has had web enablement right from 6.5, and today we are on version 9. So many different changes. Some people have used JSON, some people have agents spewing out web code, and then there are others who have the $view templates and the navigator templates and the form templates hanging around, and many different ways, and sometimes all of them coexisting. And in the case of Notes client applications, you could find code in formula language, in Lotus script, repeating some of the same things again. So it's very important to look at your own application very critically at this juncture, because it's a good chance to drop some of your existing coding practices and your existing choices and make fresh choices. 2 is the dependencies and the integrations that these applications have. Some of the times we have seen you have deep integrations with other applications. It could be an Oracle application. Sometimes it's we have an application in which there is out of office. The first set of functionality is pretty straightforward. People come in and request for a leave, and they just mark out that they're going to be out of office, and one activity happens which kind of scrapes the screen really, because they had certain considerations depending upon which geography these users were going to come in and then which server they need to go back to. And part of the data from the Notes application was going to go and sit into Outlook as well as into another .NET application. And such integrations, if they are there and people are used to it happening, we have to rethink how it's going to happen in a mobile application. I mean, it's a good use case because I would like to apply for my out of office from my mobile application. Just click a button on my calendar and press a button that says I'm out of office. And I do expect that all the people who are dependent on this information get updated pretty much instantly, whereas the current application just cannot support it. So that's why I'm saying look at your dependencies, look at the integration areas, look at all the interfaces. Excel, these are especially common in Notes client applications. It would go in the back and create some Excels, make some really nice dashboards, bring it up and show on screen, boom, you have a nice dashboard that integrates multiple sets of data for the user. Now this is not this kind of functionality that you might want to transport access into your mobile application. So look at the interfaces, what is happening and what is the user expecting out of it. As I said, reporting and analytics. All these areas, take a critical look, both from an internal point of view, how is it designed, how is it coded, also from a usability point of view, from the point of view of a mobile application, do you really need it? Both these must be weighed for you to come up with the architecture for mobile. The second step, no less critical, is to also review your design and code. Some of the things that we've seen, I mean, prima facie, this is an application that looked like it's pretty straightforward. I mean, what does it do? It's just a survey that needs to be filled out, and on submission of the survey, I have to collect this data, save it in a document, and then periodically run reports. Just that the survey form had hidden Lotus script in all kinds of places, in buttons that were not visible, and we could do that. You know, we could develop. Some time back, this is very common. You would have a hidden button that would get a hidden click. You would see a button on screen, but when you click it, it's not that button which is being clicked, but a different button that's being clicked. And such applications used to be written, and not because of anything else, because Notes applications got web-enabled pretty early, and some of the standards hadn't even been evolved yet. So there was a lot of what in other terminology is called jugaad. It's like pulling different pieces together and making things work, and Notes developers are pretty good at that, especially in early days. Look for complex agents. One agent would call, another agent would call another agent, and then somewhere right in the middle of it, there is a schedule that's triggered off, and it could result in a lot of activity happening on the server. And imagine if someone is working with 3 mobile devices and they are actually hitting your server 3 times, and in each one of them starting off these agents, your server is going to have a lot of load to handle. Look for auto-generated UI, because especially in earlier applications, I'm not so much talking there about the Notes client applications, but definitely in earlier Notes web applications, you would have a long script library somewhere, and if it's not well written, 100 lines or 200 lines of code, all it's doing is print and then constructing your entire front end. And within the print would be one JavaScript that's creating a button that on click creates menus. It's not that easy, and then that's not the way you want to bring it over to the mobile world. Look for client or browser specific code. If you have if-then conditions looking for IE specific stuff or Firefox specific stuff, Mozilla specific stuff, now is the time to kind of get rid of those, because they are no longer useful, especially when you're going to have, even if it's going to be a mobile web application, your user has a choice. They could download Opera, they could use Chrome, any types of or Safari to be able to access your application. So it is important for you to look at these and bring them up to the current standards. Look for heavy views and integrated reports. One customer wanted, had forgotten really what was going on the back of a very unassuming button. It just said, show me this data. It was very unassuming. But clicking of that button in the back end was running an agent that was collating data from about 8 different databases and constructing a report that could be like, seen on screen. Now, if sometimes, like, if you have multiple people clicking that same button, now it was not such a big deal when it was a client application, because most of them, like, it was using data locally and it was constructing it using a local Excel file and displaying. Not a big deal. The minute it went onto the server and had to do the same thing, obviously it had a problem. And when it has to come to a mobile, they said, like, no, you don't need this functionality because it's not relevant. Define your mobile features. What is it that you want to be able to do from the mobile device? It's not everything. It's much easier if you allow them to do tasks that are most useful. I would like to, let me take the same example. Like, we had the out of office situation. The easiest way for them is to take today's date or a future date and just click to select the date and just click one button which just said, like, I click on the date in this particular application. It would just fill out a form that I was out of office, allow them to just choose one or two like parameters, and then it kind of like saves itself. Maybe less than like 5 seconds for the entire activity. Now, earlier, if they had to do this, they would have to open their computers, go onto a website, and then do it. This is just like made their lives a lot more easier. Approvals for another customer, all they needed to do was to get a list of things that need to be approved, and they would just select multiple of them, because most of the times it's people saying, hey, it was a leave application, and this is an organization where one manager would probably manage something like 20, 30 different people at any point in time, and they knew what was happening. So it was a matter of seconds for them to pick, oh, okay, I would just approve A, B, C, D, E, select multiple, and then click a single button. Useful. Fill out a very large form looking for multiple data points from different places. No, that's not relevant in a case of a mobile. You really have to look at, is this something that you want people to be able to do on a very small form factor? Is it something that is really relevant for them, or is it much better off done on a either from their computers, on a web application, or on a larger form factor? Choose your mobile features. And this is extremely critical, because this is going to make a difference in the architecture that you're going to choose, as well as it's going to make a difference about the time that you're going to spend mobile enabling applications. The next one, I find it the most underused, yet the most relevant. Especially, this is true even for web in any application. The usability makes all the difference. You make a very good product, but if people don't use it, what is the use of the product? Now, in this particular case, especially when it comes to mobile applications, you have a much smaller form factor, which means looking for ways to improve the usability is very, very important. Now, left to a developer, what you see on the left is quite often what you get. Your views would just look like, collapsed sections. You would have like, large text boxes, not because of anything. And they would still use your Bootstrap, they would use your jQuery, and yet build a developer-centric design. Whereas a user-centric design is completely different. It's well worth investing time and effort into the user-centric design, defining a standard. Some of these are very simple. Consistency, the fewest number of clicks to do an activity. And these are standards, and there are good available, standards that you can follow, good themes that you can follow. There is a book, very good book called Theresa Neal's Design Patterns, Mobile Design Patterns, if I remember right. These are multiple places that you can get ideas, even as a developer. you can start looking at user-centric design as opposed to just taking what's available today, either on the web application or on the Notes client application, and replicating it onto your mobile application. So some of the critical success factors there is looking at the number of clicks, the consistency in terms of design, looking at the data architecture. I mean, it was common, I mean, in Notes, you would have one form that loads multiple subforms, and you would just have collapsible sections. Then came, like, sometimes to use dialog boxes to kind of collect the data and then apply it back. And when it came to the web world, then you had navigation possibilities that, and your next and previous, that allowed you to pick out data and show data as you wanted. Look at your data architecture. How do you really need to look at collect your data from a mobile application and apply the same principles again? This is very important. Performance. Again, I have to use this. People are now very used to Facebook, they're used to your Instagram, and they start expecting similar performance out of your application. So if it's going to take several seconds to load a screen, that's not going to be acceptable. So you have to look at how to lazy load stuff. How can I very quickly bring across my immediate look and feel, and then allow people to transition into what they really need to do. The on-device experience. As we've been repeating multiple times, people have different form factors. Your iPad and the iPad mini are not the same. Your Android tablet does not behave the same as an iPhone. And you have these new Windows Surface that almost behaves like a normal Windows laptop, just that it behaves a little differently. Your touch experience is much different. So your on-device experience has to be dependent upon what device I'm using. So it cannot be one size fits all. Even if you're planning to do a mobile web application, think about a base, consistency, and then those little touches, those additions, based on which device is likely to be accessed. At the minimum, based on the size of the screen that is available, and choose different parts of your application to show up when it's going to be different size of the screen. And the context sensitivity, especially if your application is using things like phone numbers. It's an absolute expectation today that being able to click on that and I'll be able to call. And today with HTML5 and the newer frameworks, you can do it without much effort or additional capabilities that you need to build. A lot of these have become default in the newer frameworks. Let's look at some of the tools that you can use. If you look at Domino, now if you're still on versions behind 8, it's pretty old. If you have any versions like 7, then it's a very long jump for you. You haven't seen the new Domino yet. But at least even if you are now on 8.5.2, come up to 8.5.3 or above, especially because you have a lot more in terms of frameworks, in terms of ability to surface Domino data into many different forms. So one of the critical things that you can look at is you could use anything from AngularJS, you could use Censure framework, Dojo, which is internal, and jQuery, and in combinations to bring about a very modern, consistent, and usable UI to Domino applications. No more do you have to use if statements. Those are gone. More importantly, in 8.5.3 and 9 and 9.01, you also have the Domino data services, which kind of allow your Domino data to be accessed as if it's an API. So you could pass this to your jQuery front end, which need not be run. It could be a completely different application, but it could connect to your Domino server, access the data, and return the value and be able to show it just the way you want it to be. And know that Domino Data Services is able to adhere to the same security standards. So if you do need to log in, if you have set up your access control and your Domino servers, accesses, then it will respect all those security. So you get the security part as well as be able to use any front end you want to be able to access your Domino data. And that's pretty powerful. The second tool that should definitely be part of your toolkit, especially using Xpages, is the Xpages Toolbox. It's on OpenNTF, and this tool helps you look at your application from a performance standpoint very critically. There's a very good presentation this year in Connect, and it's available on SlideShare as to how to use Xpages Toolbox. Know this because it's very easy for you to develop everything and at the end of it figure out, oh, my application, it's a little slow. And slow cannot be defined unless and you'll have to kind of figure out what's going wrong. Start using this early. Start using this right from the beginning to kind of understand what is the steps that your any request goes through. How is it able to get the data and show it, and so that you can critically evaluate every single piece of code that you're writing to be able to put together a performance-oriented application. Earlier, there used to be a lot of emphasis on Team Studio Char. Used to be pretty much the only tool that we could use for source code control, and it's still a very good tool if you're already used to it. Yeah, it's good. But for people who never were used to source code control, people who are not used to, and it used to be quite a statement, right? I mean, people coming in from, say, a Java world or in any other technology were kind of used to checking in code, checking out, being very sources driven in the way their code gets compiled and how it will be promoted to production. In Notes, that rigor was a little bit missing. There were organizations that were very good at using Char. There were organizations that did not have this. If your organization did not have this, consider taking the time to set up. With the newer versions, you are able to use any of the standard source code control mechanisms with Domino. You could check in and check out your code, and you are able to get reports. You are able to version your code, and it's possible for multiple developers to work together and yet be able to deliver the results what you really want. Look at the tools that you can use. Validate your server. See, what used to work, especially this is very true if you're being used to Notes client applications. And the minute you started web enabling them, I'm sure you got hit upon some of these. The server takes a lot more load. And in the case of mobile applications, what we have seen is it takes even more of a load because sometimes, and this could be a case where your server time out, let's say it's about 30 minutes. Now people, especially from a mobile device, let's say they've logged on to your server, they're not going to explicitly sign out. And if they have done it from 3 or 4 devices and they've started something, you have a lot of sessions hanging. You need to look at your server. You need to look at your threads, what is happening to it. Even if your application is going to be used by a VPN, is it going to be used within the network? Start looking at your server and understanding what the different parameters mean, because it has an impact. Your mobile application has an impact on these as well. Look at your agent runtime. And quite often, one of the methods that is still used is for the front end to trigger an agent that would respond with data. Now, if your agent is going to take a lot of time to run, or if it's going to be not responsive, and the agent manager has very specific ways it will run agents, the number of threads it will be allowed to run on, and how it will respond to the data, your experience to the end user could be totally short because you've not planned on how your Domino server is going to respond. The reason I got an authentication is sometimes your organization is like different, especially larger organizations. You may have multiple types of authentication going on. You may have filters that have been defined. You may have LDAP with a third party. Now you have to look at it and see whether it would impact your application in any way, especially if you are being used to only a Notes client environment. Definitely look at it because this is a new paradigm. It's not the same as a Notes client. So this will also become an important point to validate. So here comes the second poll question for all of you. What are the significant challenges that you expect to face when we're not mobile enabling your applications? Scott, can you start off this poll?
All right, the poll is launched. So what are the significant challenges you expect to face when mobile enabling your applications? So there's 4 different selections. And Gayatri, I apologize. I assumed you wanted them to select all that apply, so they could select more than one on this one. Okay, perfect.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so whether your upcoming challenge you anticipate being performance, user acceptance, requirements, definition, or technology. So we're just over half voted. Give us about 5 more seconds here, a couple of clicks of a mouse, and you'll have participated. We certainly appreciate that. It's always fun to share this information with everyone. All right, here we go. Last 2 seconds, and I will share the results. So we have performance, 40% of us say that might be an issue. User acceptance, only 20%. Requirements definition, 50%. And unsurprisingly, technology, 70% is the most significant challenge everyone thinks they're going to face.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Scott. And that is kind of like, in line with what we have seen. See, it's performance and the technology, and I would presume you all as well think about the many different possibilities, and especially if you are either a developer or like someone who is in the manager role or in putting together like the strategy and how we're going to do mobile. The technology is changing rapidly, and today you hear one terminology, and tomorrow you hear about another framework, and people are saying, "Hey, this is really cool." The good part about Domino is that a large part of these technologies is supported, and the next slide kind of shows that. For example, Domino today supports AngularJS, jQuery, Dojo, REST as an API. So you could actually have your Domino data stay and your entire front end developed elsewhere, and both of them talking to each other. It is possible for your mobile front end. You could develop your mobile front end using Xpages because you have these nice cool mobile controls, and you have the possibility of integration with many different frameworks, and then have your backend data come from any different database. So it could even be from an Oracle backend or a DB2 or something else altogether. It is possible today. You could build with IBM work like today, it's called the mobile first technology. You are able to build a hybrid application. We did a proof of concept, just a few forms, about 3-4 forms and simple set of views, not so much really views, we could actually create an application using mobile first in something about a week, and which could again be deployed inside mobile first as well as a technology platform, and it is possible today. Finally, to give you two other options, and these is again whether which one you choose is based on your business need. A mobile web application, to be able to build that, you could, the entire front end plus the data, all of it can reside on your Domino server, so that you don't have to learn completely new technologies to be able to bring your application to mobile. The second part of it is you could also use Domino as a backend for a native application, because you have the ability to create and generate data, pull out data from Domino and push it into a native application through standard web services and calls. So all of this is possible today with Domino, and by and large, unless you're developing your complete front end in Domino, your skills of not the formular languages, I would suggest that Java is a good alternative, or even with your Lotus Notes skills, you can still bring a large part of it. Of course, learning the JavaScript frameworks will add a good skill set to be able to develop these in one platform and be able to deliver these applications to your users on multiple mobile devices. So, just a quick recap. Make it a point to define your mobile strategy, because it's going to determine all that you do downstream. Know your applications, both from a metadata point and the innards of it, because there may be hidden items that you missed out and you kind of discover them far down into your mobile enablement process. Follow a user-centric design. Choose the right tools. And there are many good tools, and I would suggest that even for understanding your application, there's a tool called SourceCliffer in OpenNTF. You could take a look at that. There are good tools to evaluate how fast your application is. There are good mobile controls, as well as good examples on using a combination of JavaScript framework on the front end and Domino as the back end. There are many different projects that have been uploaded into OpenNTF. These can give you a good head start on how to move forward. Choose the right tools and make sure that your server is up to the mark, because you don't want to do everything and then put your application on the server and figure out, hey, this is kind of not where it needs to be. With that, I open this floor for questions.
Okay, great. I have a couple of questions already lined up for us. First one is, from your experience, are successful mobile projects limited to basic data and basic functional needs only?
No, we've had applications that have had good amount of workflow. What I have not seen happen on the Domino front is a lot of dashboard kind of stuff. I mean, wherever we have built dashboards, they've been aggregating data and just putting them together for someone to be able to see it, not kind of lot of drill down and things like that. But workflow applications have worked with the mobile platform.
Okay, perfect. Next question. Do you recommend a mobile front end or a native app for mobilizing Domino applications, or do you have a preference?
From what we have done in our organization for the customers, we've either gone with a hybrid mode or with a mobile web mode. We've not gone in for native applications. Most of the time, the Domino applications that we've dealt with don't need that kind of tight integration with the device. So it's light integration. So at most it is like one of the applications that we did as hybrid was a case where we wanted to access the camera because we wanted to be able to take pictures and attach them to some of the forms. This was, I think, collection of I think it was an inspection report or something like that. So ability to click a picture and then attach it into the form directly was useful. Similarly, being able to provide GPS data as well as phone data was very useful. Those were the cases when we chose the hybrid. But we have encountered so many use cases where that tight integration of the device is really necessary for Domino.
Okay, perfect. Next question. Based on your experience, which source control fits better with Notes and X Pages development, especially for a team where there is nothing implemented already?
GitHub as the repository, source tree for individuals to check in, check out. That's worked pretty nicely for us. The teams that work on these are not very big. But I do see, at least on OpenNTF as well as other projects, that many different people are working together. But in our organization, we've had about 4, maybe 5 developers working together on a single Notes development project, and this has worked pretty nicely. The challenge that we have faced personally is when there is a very large Lotus script library. There have been sometimes there are some issues, but in general with X Pages and well-designed X Pages application, this works very, very nicely.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I think we have one more question. So if anyone else is still thinking about a question or might want to get a question in, now's the time to type it in as I'm getting this last question ready to go. So just a reminder, we can take advantage of the time with Guy as he's here. So the last question I have, unless we get to one more, is can you share with us the, let's see if we can read this. I'm just I need to reword this just a little bit. For workflow-based applications, are there limitations or pitfalls you want to avoid? Okay, so basically, if there's an application that has a lot of workflow in it, is there some pitfalls or things that you want to be really careful of with it going to a mobile device?
So, I can't think of any off the hat except for the standards, following the standards, but I will ask if anything, some of my direct team members also to come back and give the answer to Scott. But off the hat, one of the things that you would want to look at as well is the state of the workflow, because think about it, right? In a website or a web application, you may be on a screen, but even if you're going to switch to a different screen and still come back, you're still there. You can maintain some of these. In a mobile device, people are doing multiple stuff. They could get a phone call. They could get, they would do the back button multiple times. Any of these, and I have to find out how they solved it or what they did actually. But I would think that being careful, especially if you have something where data is being captured across multiple screens, and then you have workflows set up based on different pieces of data, you may want to be careful about capturing the data and storing it and using it appropriately. Because if you lose the state and then you let the user figure it out every time, that's not going to be very good. But I will get specifics in terms of how this was handled or what people did in the actual implementations and share that across.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much. I think that's all of the questions we have. Oh, there is one more. If you do create, this is about creating an icon on the phone. So I think the question is there a special tool to create an icon on the phone for your app? I think the answer to that is if it's a native, or if it's a native application being added there, that would be done by the tool you're using. But if you're not, if you're trying to do a web interface only, is it possible to add an icon to the phone, or is it just simply a favorites in the browser on the phone?
Now, I believe you can add an icon, though I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know how to do that. But I can again get back to you because I know it was done. I know for sure, like, at least multiple customers have asked for this because it's easier if they click on an icon. And I know it's possible.
Okay, perfect. Great. Well, that's all of the questions that we have. Is there a slide for your contact information for you, Gayatri?
No, I thought it was part of the original invite.
That's right.
Sorry.
It was at the first. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, great. Thank you for your time. I'll give you the last word here and be able to wrap up the webinar. I thank everyone for attending, and Gayatri, thank you for your presentation. Very informative. I'll let you go ahead and do the final word, and then we'll end the meeting.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you very much, all of you, for attending today's webinar. I would like to leave you with this fact that it is possible to bring your Domino applications to the mobile world, and especially since it's something that a lot of enterprises are asking for. It helps if you think about it, plan for it, and take the steps towards making a good mobile application. I wouldn't even say mobile web. And thank you all again, and hope you found this useful.
Great. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.